Kind of funny story. I have a lot of friends who go on rallies and stuff, and one of the guys, I think he flew in from Italy, and he didn't, his car wasn't available, it was being shipped or something like that. So he rented a car and he asked for the sportiest car they had, which was a Maxima. And so he's going around telling everybody, oh, I had the Maxima, it's going to be great on the rally. Let me kind of give you some feel of it. There's that wheel spin. One thing I like about Nissans is a lot come with remote start. So as I'm outside doing this part of the review for you guys, I can warm up the car. Let me start in the front just because I always do, and I think the front on this car is kind of interesting, and then work our way around. They did update the front and back. They did a mid-cycle refresh. On a car like this, it's sporty enough. The front plate frame is kind of not a fan of, but I like this. Nissan's done a good job kind of bringing some of the more aggressiveness down where it's not quite crazy to like the Toyota proportions. Again, that's subjective. I like these in black too. This is an interesting red color on here. So nice looking car. I like the rims. Dark rims is such a trend now, but I do think it looks nice. So many people aftermarket will, darken them. This one is not the sport trim. This is the platinum, which I'll show you in the interior is beautiful. I'd probably get the sport trim. Nice piano roof on there. It just rained last night, so could not get you guys footage before that. But really pretty car overall. I like the quad. They are true dual exhaust, and then they have that quad tip look on them. Even electric cars have that now. So let's check out the trunk. Pretty spacious trunk. Not going to cover that a lot on a sports sedan, but there it is. Let's check out the engine. So I like the engine on this car. I think it's one of the strong points of the vehicle. I'll talk about why I wish it had all-wheel drive, especially if they had more power. Now that the Ultima has it, you think it would be possible. We'll talk about that in the drive review. Can't really see much on it, but nice little Nissan V6, naturally aspirated. So there's that. Let's check out the inside, because on this particular one, it's very nice. It's as much luxury sedan as it is sport sedan. So nice. Even though I get the sport trim, I want to talk about it a little bit. I'm not too sure on this material. It's different than carbon fiber and like metal trim. So it's, I like it in that it's different. This, color is cool. I don't know if I'd personally get it, but it's really beautiful. I'll show you more on the seats. You get the two-tone here, and you get like stitching up there, stitching up there, just really nice interior. But let me show you these seats. And if you've ever felt the high-end Nissan leather, I don't know how long they've had this, but it's up there with like any of the very, very high-end luxury cars. Like it's some of the softest like leather I've ever come across on these seats. But I believe you do have to get this trim, and you can't get this leather in the sport trim, unfortunately, which is maybe how I configure the car. We'll talk about that in the drive review. Nice big screen here, pretty traditional Nissan. All the safety tech, pretty decent safety tech. No Pro Pilot Assist yet on this one. I'm sure the real refresh will have it, but the mid-cycle did get a lot of driving aids like smart cruise control, lane assistant, lane, pulls you back in your lane. Some cool stuff like that. Anyway, onto the gauges here, and then I'll have a separate video on CarPlay on this car, which I'm going to be uploading later. But anyway, MPG. Here, all the driving aids. That's the logo for Pro Pilot Assist, but that's not quite on this car yet. It does have a lot of other stuff like smart cruise control, blind spot monitoring, tons of other stuff, lane departure, like assistance. It'll pull you back in your lane, but it won't actually steer itself at all for you. It'll just keep you in your lane, which is good. Speed limit signs recognition, warning, no warnings there. Compass, which I think is a kind of cool logo. And stuff. You can show your music up there. This is, again, that actually, check out that the weather is in the background. It shows, sure enough, that it's raining out right now, which I thought was kind of neat. Then your MPGs, things like that, of course, pretty standard. That's on all Nissans. The one I like most, though, is the sport one. And when you engage sport mode, I'm going to show you, it actually changes, and you press OK. And then it shows a power gauge there. I'm not sure if it'll do it in park. Let's find out. It does. So it shows you how much power at any given time. I've only seen that in like real sports cars or like Bentley. I think Rolls-Royce has a power gauge. Bugatti has a power gauge. I think that's kind of a cool feature. I wish it would actually show like a number or a percent. But I still think it's a neat feature. The heated seat on, you can hear a little fan running in here, which I thought was kind of interesting. Usually that's only when the cooled seat is on, so it's kind of nice. It kind of blows the hot air. So I don't know if this comes across on video, but this aniline leather actually preserves the texture of it, and then it has a coating over it to protect it, because it's what's called like semi-aniline leather. But yeah, you can see like the texture of the leather in here. I hope it comes across on video as well, you know, as it does in person. To show you the texture and patina it develops earlier, the headrest is actually a good example. See that little pattern in there? That's what will kind of develop in this leather more so over time. This car has like 200 miles on it, so you don't see it a lot yet, but you see it starting to form there, and it's just really cool. There. Back seats, again, just like I kind of glossed over the trunk. 2 6-feet people can fit comfortably in this car. It actually is smaller though on some dimensions than the new Altima, which I thought was kind of interesting about. So I'll get the one area of improvement for this car out of the way so I can, you know, talk about good things. The Altima now you can get all-wheel drive on, which is really nice if you live in a certain climate, or also I feel like it's nice if you know, in a performance car. I did notice though, at least currently, you can't get the all-wheel drive on the bigger engine Altima, which is probably why they didn't add it to the Maxima. That, and they haven't you know, done a full refresh where maybe they couldn't fit it in. But yeah, so the driving dynamics in sport mode, the steering is actually pretty communicative as well. The brakes are good, not great, considering it's like a sports sedan, but compared to anything else in its class and price point, you know, it's a very sporty suspension and handling and braking. Like I said, I just leave it in sport mode most of the time. The nice thing about the CVT is even in sport mode, you get like, you know, faster shifts. It'll hold gears longer. But I've noticed when I'm just like cruising, even if I disengage sport mode, it won't switch the RPMs at all. So I don't know how badly that actually hurts your like MPGs. I'm sure there's gonna be some sacrifice, but the week I had it, I just left it in sport. Wow, it is quick. Little wheel spin off the line. You can't really accelerate vigorously. Like 300 horsepower is just definitely pushing it. If you look at like the Civic Type R and stuff, they did like a trick diff in that car to make the front wheel drive work. This car, even with a fairly grippy Goodyear Eagle type tire, you know, there's wheel spin and it's hard to accelerate through corners. Once you get past that though, it is definitely one of the sportier choices in its class. I'd say it's like a Mazda 6, something like that. I would say the interior is nicer on this. The new Mazda 6 much nicer. And this trim, I think the interior beats the Mazda 6, but again, that's much like style, that's so much preference. Here, coming around a corner, let's throw it on through. Yeah, the suspension setup's really good. Very little bit of body roll, which I'm sure would be eliminated if you did get that sports trim, which unfortunately I'm sure they wanted to showcase this interior, you know, so they didn't send that. But it is still a sporty car. Like I said, if I was configuring, I'd probably give up this beautiful soft supple leather just to get that sports suspension tuning and all the different, you know, sport options. I feel like a lot of people who get this car you know, want something truly sporty. That reminds me, like, would I buy this car with my own money? I think this car actually weirdly gives Infiniti. I don't know if it's cross-shopped a lot, some competition. The nice thing is Infinitis are rear-wheel drive, and like to that point, like maybe like a Mazda 6. This one would definitely be one on my short list that I drive and check out. If you like the Nissan brand language, design language, things like that, I think the engine's pretty incredible. Now you can get the new turbo in the Mazda 6, but before that, this engine would have killed it. I've driven that engine in the Mazda CX-9, and it's fast in that. But again, that's a front-wheel drive car, so I would, you know, chalk the performance even on the Turbo 6 and this down to being pretty close. This car did kind of start the category of like four-door sports sedans, or four-door DSC, I believe was. They used to mark it on the back. I thought it was pretty interesting. So it's still competitive in that category. There are just a lot of competitors in that group now that kind of weren't around when the Maxima came out. One last point on driving performance of this car, kind of funny story. I have a lot of friends who go on rallies and stuff, and one of the guys, I think he flew in from Italy, and he didn't, his car wasn't available, it was being shipped or something like that. So he rented a car and he asked for the sportiest car they had, which was a Maxima. And so he's going around telling everybody, oh, I had the Maxima, it's gonna be great on the rally. Sure enough, like he was kind of in the back of the pack, but he was like keeping up with people on this really curvy, kind of high speed rally. He was like screeching his tires and stuff. I thought that was kind of interesting. Another cool thing I will say though is, especially when you're like manually shifting it, which is weird with a CVT, there is a nice engine and exhaust note in this car, and it's not being piped in, which, let me kind of give you some feel of it. There's that wheel spin. See, so there is like sound, and you can hear the exhaust when you're in sport mode and kind of on it. Well, next time, my speedy racers, drive on.